You're listening to WOWDLP Takoma Park, and this is The Thought Bowl. I'm Pete.
Hey, I'm Heather.
And we're here today with Tiffany.
Hi.
This is not the singer from the 80s. You want to make that clear. This is not the pop singer from the 80s.
You've never heard that before, right?
Yeah. Never.
So we're going to talk about a wide variety of things today. Weightlifting, CrossFit, maybe some teacher stuff. We might get into some teacher stuff if it happens.
Improv.
And the
yeah.
most important thing, which comedy place has the best French fries?
That is important. I have
That
no
is.
idea.
Yeah,
That's how
a
I
tough one.
choose where to go to see comedy.
Yeah. So let's start off. We usually start off with an origin story. So Tiffany, where does your superhero origin story? How did you get to the Washington D.C. area?
Well, I've actually been here since elementary school. My family, we moved around a bunch and then ended up here and then kind of stayed here. So I grew up just not too far from here in Bethesda.
Yeah,
You say that.
Yeah, because I never really wanted to claim it, but it is what it is, you know. Because people have like these ideas.
Did your parents have a BMW?
No,
and a
not
butler
at all.
and a nanny?
Yeah.
That's what I think of Bethesda.
Yeah, exactly. And that's why, I had friends, most of my friends actually were from, went to BCC. So I, for the most part, kind of like hung around them.
And they had the BMWs. And
yeah, right.
Remind me what BCC is.
Bethesda Chevy Chase.
Oh, okay. Yeah,
high school.
I did not grow up here, so I know some of the high
okay.
schools. But yeah.
Where did you grow up?
I grew up in New Jersey.
Oh,
Yeah.
okay. Yeah, we lived in, well, another one. I shouldn't say that either, but we lived in Ridgewood for a little bit.
Oh, Ridgewood. I had friends there
Yeah.
in Ridgewood, New Jersey.
Yeah.
Yeah.
So why did your parents move around so much?
Because they were secret agents
Ooh.
Really?
in this. No.
Oh.
They're too secret. Secret Agents is their cover
You just
story.
blew their cover if that was the case.
No, they both worked for IBM at one point, and for whatever reason, they transferred people a lot. And for IBM, like the word was called like "I've been moved," like when you work internally. So I've actually, if you want me to do it real quick, I was born in St. Louis, and then we moved to Michigan, and then we moved to North Carolina, and then New Jersey, I think, and then Texas, and then here.
Wow.
Yeah.
So you were pretty young, so do you have
Yeah.
memories of any of those places?
Just a little bit. My family, they're now all split between St. Louis and Michigan for the most part. I've got some like spattered about. So we go back there, back and forth, and then I went to school in Michigan. But like the other places are just sort of like little brief memories. It's definitely harder for my brother because he was older. He's 4 years older.
Oh, okay.
So for me, like you said, I was like a baby, so I don't really remember too much of it. But yeah.
Do you get asked where you're from? Like, I don't hear a specific accent from you, but I imagine with all those places and all your family being in all those places, people might, you might have picked up some accents from some of them.
People do all the time. I've actually made a little set about that.
Oh, really? for improv?
Yeah. For people asking me that, like, because you said, I don't know if I look some way or sound something or they can't peg it, but yeah, people ask me all the time, like, where you're from. And then it's kind of, you figure out what they're asking, sort of. Like, sometimes, it's because with such a transient city here, people are questioning whether you grew up here or you're born here or not. And then sometimes people are just like, are your parents like exotic or something?
Yeah.
I'm like, nope, just a little black girl.
Yeah, people
all.
want to peg you.
Yeah.
Nothing exciting.
First time I met you, I thought you were from the UK.
Really?
Yeah. And I thought you were working your accent out of your vocabulary.
Oh, now I want to hear.
That's what it sounded like to me.
Now I want to hear us all do a British accent.
Or do you want like a working class British accent, or you want a more posh type sounding British accent?
That's very good, Pete.
thank
And
you,
this is
thank
not really a British accent. Whenever I try to do an accent, who knows what comes out of my mouth? It could be from some combination of any language I've heard in my life. This is Heather speaking, by the way. I claim this ridiculous accent.
You sound like an educator.
Yeah,
Like,
I do.
like someone in the library that could be from, Oxford, or could be from somewhere,
Oh,
or Scotland or Ireland.
So what about you, Tiffany? Do you want to play?
Oh, why? Sure. Let's have some tea.
Yeah, it's more
That's
of a
very
posh.
good.
Yeah, it's
Yeah.
more of a posh.
Culturally appropriate, too,
Yeah.
with the tea in there.
Yeah.
Which
And-
I always thought meant tea, and apparently it means like dinner time, right? Or does tea mean...
Could be, right?
I guess tea is involved, but
Yeah.
it's like
Yeah,
it's
oh, they-
sit-
I feel
They
like
always
it's
drink
like
tea.
it's happy hour anywhere, 5 o'clock
hour.
somewhere.
Right.
Yeah.
It's
I
tea-
feel like
it's tea
maybe
time
they are
everywhere.
like they have tea like all the time, like how Italians have like coffee or espresso all the time. Maybe I don't know.
that makes sense.
Makes
yeah.
sense, right? Let's
Yeah.
go with that.
I like that. Tea happy hour.
Because I have a friend, Lydia. She's from the UK via Sierra Leone, and she's slowly working her British accent almost to the point where now she almost doesn't have one.
Oh wow.
But you kind of sound like her when you
Yeah.
talk. Like you have similar voices.
Something.
Yeah.
Yeah.
But also maybe some of the St. Louis, some of the Midwest.
Right?
Maybe
yeah.
I'm kind of hearing that.
Probably a
also.
mix.
Yeah.
Yeah, my mom actually, when we moved to North Carolina, I think it was, apparently I like picked up a Southern accent, and she was like, "Oh my God, like stop!"
She's like, we're not from here.
I think it's Southerners, but yeah, she was not really trying to hear me be like "y'all" and all that stuff.
Fixing to
Yeah.
go to the store.
Yeah.
So what do you call soda?
Soda.
Just soda.
Yeah, yeah. Pop is. I mean, I understand pop,
Mm-hmm.
but yeah, I say soda because Midwesterners, like my cousins and stuff, will all say pop.
Oh, okay.
Yeah.
Huh.
I actually, some of my family, I just got back from a family reunion down in Tennessee, and some of them, I think the ones in Alabama had said that they actually do say Coke, which like for any
Yeah.
kind. And I hadn't realized I
Yeah,
knew
yeah,
anyone who did that. Like, give me a Coke, and it might be a Sprite, a 7-Up or something.
Yeah.
Yeah. It's kind of like that in Louisiana. It's almost like branding.
Okay.
Like a Xerox or a Kleenex for like a tissue.
Right,
Yeah.
a Band-Aid or something.
Yeah.
Yeah.
I'm sure Coke is very happy about that. The fact
Sure.
that they refer to every
Yeah.
everything you drink as a Coke.
Like ginger ale.
Yeah.
Or like Verner's. Verner's is like a total Midwest thing.
What
In
is it called?
Michigan.
Uh-huh.
But it's like, it cures all of your ills.
Hmm.
But they sell it now here. It's weird. When I finally saw it pop up here, I was like, oh my God, there's Verner's.
I think I've
And
seen
I
that.
took a picture and sent it to like my cousins in Michigan.
So it's a soda?
Detroit.
It's, what,
Yeah, it's a soda. It's, I don't know, it's kind of a mix between like ginger ale and
7-Up? Or
7-Up cream soda. It's like a strange little, yeah, you'll have to look for it. Give it a try.
So it's like a snake oil where like
Yeah.
it'll make you feel better.
Yeah,
you're sick,
when you're
yeah.
sick, it's like how you have ginger ale or like tea.
Right.
How you have a tea.
Oh,
Yeah.
yeah.
Very
These are
nice.
not our station's commercials, by the way.
I
We
know,
are a
right?
non-commercial
Yeah.
station. Drink any soda,
Yeah.
pop, or
You're
Coke
right.
you want.
Yeah.
But
Water. Just get water.
Yeah.
Yeah.
I had to look up recently because I was wondering, it's like, what's the difference? Well, it started because the term lime and lemon.
Uh-huh.
In most Spanish language countries, there's no word for lemon. They just call it they call lemons a yellow lime.
Oh,
more or less.
interesting.
So we were talking about 7-Up and Sprite. And I was like, oh, what is the difference between 7-Up
Right.
and Sprite? So I did some research, and apparently 7-Up is like way more carbonated
Huh.
than Sprite. That's really the only major
Interesting.
difference.
it's 7 times carbonated.
That's what the
Right?
7-Up is for?
I
That's the
don't- I'm
7?
just-
Oh, okay.
Making that
Yeah,
up now.
that's-
Spreading facts.
Making up the
Go with
news.
it,
We don't
yeah.
report the news. We make it up here.
Yes. So we're going to be talking about improv and competitive bodybuilding. We also brought some music. I don't know if you want to play any of that yet, but do you want to tell us a little what you brought?
Yeah,
or-
tell us about the Nina Simone song.
Oh, well, Nina Simone's actually one of my favorites of like ever. And I just feel like everybody always needs some Nina in their life.
How did you discover her?
How did I?
Just via your parents or via your own interests?
Well, I think it's probably a bit of both because my parents would play like, a lot of old stuff like when we were growing up. Well, it was probably not old at the time, but it felt old. And then I probably maybe heard her through them, but they're not like huge Nina fans. But then I think, it was Point of No Return, that movie. And they have a lot of like Nina on the soundtrack for that movie. The like, what was it? The assassin?
Oh, I can't remember.
I can't think of who she was, but she like played Nina, like that was her thing. And then I was like, oh my God, who is this woman? I totally love her. And then I actually got to see her live right before she died, and I couldn't find any friends, so I dragged my parents, and we went and saw her, and I was like in tears, like crying, like,
wow.
So, yeah.
Did she know she was dying? Did she die like?
Yeah, she was older by then. I mean,
okay.
By the time I saw her, she was like not in her prime anymore, but she still was, I think, at like, I want to say like Constitution Hall or something, where I got to see her, and then I got to shake her hand and everything.
Oh, wow.
You
So it was
did?
exciting.
That's awesome.
It was like pre-cell phones. So
I was about to say, did you take a selfie with her?
I don't have any pictures. Just in my heart.
Aw.
Wow.
Well, sometimes those are the best pictures.
Right.
So,
yeah.
so what Nina Simone song did you bring?
Feeling Good, I think.
All right. You're listening to WOWD, Takoma Park. This is the Thought Bowl, and that was Nina Simone with Feeling Good.
Yeah.
And we're here talking with Tiffany, and let's jump into the bodybuilding stuff.
Yeah.
So how did you, what gauged your interest in that?
Well, I'm actually a power lifter.
Oh, I'm sorry.
Yeah.
Powerlifter, not
Yeah,
bodybuilder.
bodybuilding people are gonna be like,
She's not one of us.
Yeah. No,
So what is the
it's
difference
quite-
between powerlifting and bodybuilding?
Well, bodybuilding is more like physique type stuff.
Okay.
I
Like
think.
Arnold Schwarzenegger
Yeah,
or Lou
where they're
Ferrigno.
like, you're right.
Mhm.
So I've had a couple friends that have done bodybuilding, and I barely have the discipline for powerlifting, but I for sure do not have the discipline for bodybuilding because you have to it's like
Oil
all
down
physique. Yeah,
and do all that
you have
stuff.
to do tanning and like wake up at like 3:00 in the morning for like meals and stuff. I don't know. It's
Wow.
like way more intense than I would ever want, and I like my gut. So I'm okay with it,
It's gone
It's
places,
like, every once in a while when I get in like good shape and I got a nice little like almost a little 3-pack, I guess, going on, it's cool. But if not, I feel like the gut is a symbol that you're happy and you're enjoying food, right?
I
true,
agree.
yeah.
That's
So I'm okay with it. But with powerlifting, you have 3 lifts that you do. It's squat, bench press, deadlift. And I came about it because actually I started doing CrossFit, but I'm just really bad at like cardio, anything like running. Like growing up, I was an athletic girl, I suppose, but I always hated like long distance stuff. Like I was a sprinter, And with CrossFit, you do a lot of like high intensity type things. So I would kind of like, if the workout, it's called like the workout of the WOD, had a lot of like running or cardio stuff, I would sort of not go, which wasn't really good because it was like wasting money and I wasn't consistent. And then at my current gym, they did a powerlifting meet at the gym. So I was like, oh, maybe I'll sign up for that because I actually like lifting because it's, the part I like. And then I really got lucky I met this couple who, they're married now. So Rachel, the wife, she does CrossFit, and then her husband, Andrew, is a power lifter, and they work out in the morning, and they kind of like helped me, learn all the lifts and learn about powerlifting. And from there, I just kind of kept going. So I have a meet coming up at the end of this month, actually.
Wow.
Yeah.
So what did you start with when you start out powerlifting? What kind of a weight, or do you just start in? Or?
Yeah, you just kind of go all in. I think, I think the first thing I did was just try and get your 1 rep max to figure out like where I was for each lift. So I don't know, I was like super weak then. weak sauce, as they say. But
Weak sauce,
Yeah.
like the inside vocabulary.
yeah. But and then Rachel and Andrew, they're like They were awesome because they're like super strong. Like Rachel competed in CrossFit Games last year, and they were always like, "You're not weak," or more Rachel. She's like, "You're not weak. Stop it. Like you're strong. You're here doing it. You're lifting. You're doing stuff. Like you're not weak." And so you just kind of when I first started, it was just kind of learning like the form. Like for squats, I wasn't getting low enough. So she was kind of helping me with like stretches that I could do to help my mobility, and also kind of being older, it's like I have a bunch of friends that are lifters or power lifters and stuff, and they're all like a lot younger. So for me, it's like I gotta stretch because I like will pull muscle like doing laundry, like, yeah, your body changes like after 40, like things happen.
Oh yeah.
Yeah, right.
You're past 40? You're not past 40.
No, I didn't think so either. You're saying younger. I'm like, are they in their teens? Or...
It's always good to know. Yeah, 41.
Oh,
41
okay.
in December.
Oh, well, congratulations! A
right?
few months ahead. Yeah.
Yeah, people don't tell you like when you turn 40, your body deteriorates.
Yeah, it's literally like the day after.
Right.
It's,
It is,
everything
yeah.
happened with me. All my gout
I
happened with
never-
me.
yeah.
Everything.
But I think there's this creative burst that happens after 40 too. So
Yeah.
I'm at the end of the 40s now. I just turned 50 in
wow.
November. So I feel like I'm coming out of my creative
Yeah.
burst, and now I'm in my, okay, I just want to lie around a couple of years.
Yeah.
But so are these free weights that you're picking
No,
up?
a barbell.
Barbells. Okay.
Yeah. So for each 3, it's like, but you do accessory work.
What's
with,
that?
Like other little movements to help with your lifts. So you might use dumbbells or kettlebells or bands or even like body weight for some stuff probably.
Okay. I imagine you learn a lot of anatomy too, like with the names of the different muscles.
Yeah.
That
Well, you should, but
arm muscle,
Yeah.
leg,
Yeah.
thigh muscle.
yeah, posterior chain. It's just like when I keep looking up, like, because I keep seeing it or hearing people talk about it, and I'm like, oh, I can't remember what that is. Something about your back, and it's important. So I've been sort of doing stuff to focus on that. But I will say, though, that people, I mean, I was intimidated for sure, like when I started, but the powerlifting community is a lot like the improv community. So that's kind of how I met Pete, like doing improv. And they're just super supportive, and, everyone's just helpful, and they want you to be strong, and it's all about gains, and even like body weight, like, it's like, I mean, you have to get into a weight class so everybody sees how much you weigh and stuff. So it's
So there's a weight class for
Yeah.
all the competitions?
Yeah.
Oh, okay. And how are they? Is it like kind of like boxing weight classes, like flyweight?
No,
middleweight,
it's
and-
literally like I'm in the 84K kilogram weight
Oh,
class,
okay.
so I'm kind of heavy.
Well,
I'm around, yeah.
84 doesn't sound like when they do it in
80
kilograms.
yeah, kilograms. It's great. But weights, it's like what, around 180 something.
Yeah, so I think it's almost double,
So-
or like around.
And I keep
around
saying I want to try and like go to a lower one, but I don't know. I like food.
Yeah.
I can't do all the cutting and diet strict stuff. So we'll see.
Do you find you splurge like the day after working out? Like splurge on food?
Oh, I imagine it uses a lot of energy, right?
Yeah, no, yeah. Sometimes I'm like up, like texting my friends. They like hate me because I'll text them and be like 11 o'clock. Like I sometimes will fall asleep at 10 and then I wake up at like 11 or midnight starving.
Uh-huh.
And I'll like try and text people that I know are probably up, and I'm like, I'm so hungry. Like, what can I eat right now? And they're like, go back to sleep.
Yeah. So you got to find out where all the 24-hour restaurants
Yeah.
are. Waffle House or things. Yeah. So at a meet, like who attends it? Is there an audience, or is it all other weightlifters watching you?
It's like a mixture of both. So the very first one, it was weird because I wasn't really expecting that. So when I went up, the squat is the first lift that you do. And when I went up, my parents came even, and they were like sitting right up front. And so I was sort of like caught off guard because everyone's just sort of watching you. So my immediate was like just to start laughing because I'm like, this is so bizarre. And then my dad kind of gave me a look like, be careful, like he was concerned, like it's not funny, you're gonna hurt yourself. And then my mom was all worried. So then I started to kind of like, oh God, what did I get myself into? But then you kind of get used to it, and you just don't even pay attention that they're watching you or they're there. Some people love it and feed off it. Like, so I follow like other lifters on like Instagram and stuff, and they are like crazy animated and all extra, and I'm just like lazy lifter, like awkward. I go up, do the lift, I'm like, yay.
You don't go,
No.
and flex.
Well, internally.
Internal flexing.
Yeah.
Yeah, I kind of envision it like the Karate Kid. For some reason, I have like the Karate Kid in my head, just like the way that their competition was.
Yeah. I mean, it's pretty a big deal, like for people that are like crazy strong and really, I mean, now I didn't realize too, my first meet, there's a master's category, which I didn't realize. So for 40 and up, there's different master's divisions. So had I known that, I actually would have placed in my very first meet.
Oh,
Yeah.
but you didn't tell them you were.
I didn't
40.
know.
Uh-huh. Oh, okay.
Yeah.
So what's the oldest person you've seen at these meets?
I don't know.
Maybe like in her 50s, 60s, maybe?
Probably 50s.
50s.
Yeah.
Is
But
it? Is it co-ed or is it?
Yeah.
Oh, it is. Okay.
yeah,
good.
it's co-ed. But the women all compete together, and then the men all compete together.
Oh.
But,
Okay.
but they're in the same venue and everything's happening at once.
So it's like, so typically the women will go first and then the men go after. And then, like, within that, you have flights, which are like heats. I don't know if you've ever watched track and field or something where they have heats of runners. So for lifting, there's flights, which is typically like each weight class goes. So each weight class will do squat, and then each weight class does bench press and then deadlift.
And are you noticing the amount of weight lifted? Does it vary between weight classes?
Yeah, so there's a Wilks score, which has some calculation, so it evens it out. Like, I don't know what that equation is, but it calculates it. So it's like if you're, 100 pounds, it'll make some calculation to kind of equate that weight to the person who's like 300 pounds.
Okay. So if you were someone that was relatively tiny that could lift a lot, you'd be in good shape.
Yeah.
Okay, I see.
For sure.
Huh, that's really interesting.
Yeah.
How they use that score.
Yeah. Wilks score. See, I know something.
It's one of those math in real life things.
Yeah, exactly.
Yeah.
And what about juicing?
What's that?
Steroid use
yeah.
and I guess probably testosterone use
Right.
also with a lot of
because
women.
there's different federations actually too with lifting. So I mean, it's kind of like, I guess, taboo-ish, like where some people really don't care if people juice, and then some people do care. I mean, I'm not like crazy competitive, and I compete in USAPL, so they drug test, so you can't really juice. I mean, I guess you could if you were like, what's the guy's name? What's the cycle guy that got Armstrong?
Armstrong.
Yeah.
Okay.
Right? Or
Was
no?
it? There is a cycle guy, Armstrong, but I'm
Not Louis Armstrong. That's what's
No.
stuck in
Lance
my head.
Armstrong.
Lance Armstrong.
Lance
yes,
Armstrong. Yeah.
Yeah.
So if you could probably get all extra and figure out a way to like cheat the system, you could. But I mean, some people have really strong feelings about it. I'm just like,
If you're willing to do whatever.
yeah, if
it's-
you're gonna do it, do it. If you're not, you're not. And just be honest, if you're competing something that says you can't juice, then don't do it.
What about a separate juicing division? You think that would solve some problems where like you were allowed to juice in a particular?
Yeah, well, I mean, I'm sure they do in some of the federations that don't test.
Yeah, that's basically what it's like a juicing division. more or
Right.
less, yeah.
And so, but yeah, I mean, it wouldn't be fair, obviously, if they didn't have that. But then, whatever. I mean, if
Right.
I'm gonna be like some world champion, then I would probably care a little bit more. But I'm not doing it. I'm all clean, buddy.
Yeah. I mean, I would think it
Making a
kind of,
proclamation now. Tiffany is totally clean.
yeah. I mean, I would think it would take away from the trying to see, what's the best that you can be? How can you get? And are there prizes? I mean, what would be the reason?
Yeah. So some federations have like cash prizes.
Oh, okay.
Yeah.
Okay.
And if you get really good at stuff, you would get like sponsors and
Mm-hmm.
endorsements and everything. It's just like any other
Like
athlete or
NASCAR
sport.
anything. Yeah.
Yeah. But you still, I mean, even if you are juicing, you still have to put in the work. It's not like
Right.
if we're gonna just go and like, I don't even know if do they do like shooting up? I don't remember. I don't even know anymore. I just know when we were like younger, it was like, oh my god, like like they were
physically
injecting it.
Yeah, I think like a lot now. It's a lot more what are
Like-
those growth hormones?
Right,
and
you
other
take
ways
them.
there.
So, but you still have to do the work. It's not like you can just go and take it and then you're automatically going to be like
Right.
Superhero.
super strong.
Yeah.
It just helps. It helps you.
Right.
Well, we're talking about weightlifting and muscles and tissue. And speaking of tissues, some Red Hot Chili Peppers with scar tissue. That was Red Hot Chili Peppers with scar tissue. And you're listening to The Thought Bowl on WOWD Tacoma Park. And we're here with Tiffany talking about weightlifting, talking about comedy, talking about life, talking about growing up in the DC area. Let's jump into your comedy. So you do improv and stand-up?
I do. Well, except for now, I do more stand up than improv. I was on a troupe, The Neighbors, but just like too much stuff going on in life, and I had to like cut some things back, and that was kind of one of them. So, but improv I love and I miss all the time just because it's such a great community. It's like I said, when I first started, that's how I got into comedy, through improv. I took classes at WIT, and my original class, OZR was our name. We're all still like friends from our original class.
Nice.
Yeah.
And the question I had earlier was, what comedy venue has the best French fries?
I know. God.
First, the question I have is, what's your feeling on the garlic French fries?
Well, I'm kind of more like plain fries kind of girl.
So no Old Bay, none of that.
No.
Just-
But I mean, obviously I like food, like I said. So I'm good for that too. But I prefer actually skinny fries
Oh, okay.
than the fat ones, and just like ketchup. I know it's so boring, right?
Do you like them crunchy?
Yeah,
fries?
a little crunchy.
Yeah.
Because when you get the soft ones, like especially with their bigger, they get caught in your throat and you like die.
Oh, they can burn your tongue too if they're really hot.
Yeah,
Those big
right.
soft ones, they break.
You bite
and then-
into it.
Yeah.
Yeah. It's bad news.
Yeah. Yeah, I don't like places that don't do a full disclosure of what's their French fries are all about. Like they'll just have the normal French fries will be
Right.
like the garlic and Parmesan.
Yeah.
And like
no.
you got to tell people ahead of time that they're
Right.
getting garlic and Parmesan on their French fries.
Right.
'cause Most people think French fries are.
They're French fries.
Yeah, then you can go from there. If you want
Yeah.
something extra, you can get extra. But don't make your basic fry like a garlic
Right.
and Parmesan French
Yeah.
fries.
No.
Yeah.
I'm not specifically calling out the pinch, but
Right. Yeah.
What's that thing in Canada where do they put like gravy?
Little gravy on your French
fries?
fries.
Is
Yeah,
something called
yeah.
poutine, or is that
What?
something else?
Poutine?
It's no G.
No, I have
It's
heard
like
that.
Poutine, unless I'm making it up.
No, I think that's right.
Yeah, and I feel like it's not just gravy; it's some kind
Poutine
of
or something.
gravy and then something else
Yeah.
on top of it.
Right.
And I don't know, fish. Who knows?
Wow. Yeah, when my aunt went to Frostburg, that was the thing. Like people would make fun of at a restaurant. Like they would come up and they would say, "Little gravy with your French fries." So that was like kind of like a thing people made fun of. That like that was like a question, not like, "Oh, do you want ketchup with your French
Right,
fries?"
right,
Like, do you want
right.
gravy
Yeah.
with your French fries? Because that was the norm. Frostburg's kind of like near Pennsylvania and all
there.
that. Yeah.
Here it is. It's poutine, Poutine, from Quebec, and it consists of French fries and cheese curds topped with a brown gravy.
Oh, that actually sounds tasty.
I like cheese curds.
Yeah.
You can get them at the farmers market here
Right.
in Tacoma Park. But I don't know. I don't eat meat, so I assume a brown gravy might
Oh.
have meat in it.
Maybe.
Possibly. It's probably like beef
Yeah.
Yeah, beef
base
stock. Has
stock.
like-
Yeah.
Yeah. So.
Yeah, I'll pretty much eat anything, honestly. Like, I'm not picky.
So do you bring your weightlifting into the comedy that you do, the stand-up?
Sometimes, yeah, I've done sets about it. Particularly after my very first meet, just because it was such a weird experience, and I didn't really know what I was doing, and so my parents were there. My mom was like, "Oh my God, why are you even lifting all that stuff? Like, you don't need to." So it was just funny to like think back. You know, I was literally there at the weigh-ins, looking up like what happens at a powerlifting meet, because I was just like, you know, I just focused so much on the lifts. I didn't really think about the actual meet. And then I actually met like some friends while we were sitting there waiting, made friends, I should say, while we were weighing in. So just that, I mean, yeah, I've definitely done some bits about lifting and the meet, and just how people will kind of look at you, and if you tell them, it's almost like if you tell people you do comedy, they're like, "Oh, tell me a joke."
Yeah.
You know,
Lift
like,
this can for me.
yeah, that's exactly what happens. If you tell people you're a lift or a power lifter, they're like, "Oh, can you pick me up?" And then I actually will be like, "I probably can." And, you know, like, don't ask me that, you know, if you don't want me to try, because I actually will try.
And then I'll tell a joke about
Yeah.
it. I love how parents are so supportive, whether they understand what
Yeah.
their kids are doing or not.
Yeah.
Okay, well, my daughter's doing something, but
Yeah.
you know, I'm supposed to be here, and I'll
Exactly. Yeah. They come to everything when they can, at least anyway. And
Yeah.
it's just funny. I mean, a lot of my jokes I do tell a lot of jokes about them. And, you know, they're like in the audience. And I don't really even warn them. It's just like, haha, you know, you're on tonight with me. Little did you know.
Do they have
Yeah.
T-shirts that say Tiffany's
Oh my
mom,
God.
Tiffany's
Don't
dad?
give them ideas. My mom would totally do that. She calls me and my brother number one daughter and number one son. And we're like, there's only one of each of us. So
So they come to see you do stand up also?
yeah.
Oh, okay.
Yeah.
I don't think I've been anywhere where I've seen them yet.
You probably have, because we performed a couple of times together.
Uh-huh.
Like, they've come to DCAC
Oh,
when
okay.
we were doing stuff.
Uh-huh.
And I feel like, I don't know.
Huh.
You probably have, but they're just kind of like, come, watch me,
Mm-hmm.
and then they'll kind of be like, leave.
They didn't have the T-shirts yet.
Yeah, no. God.
What about your brother? Does he come to any of
No,
these
'cause
things,
he's in
or-
Minnesota.
Oh, he's in Minnesota.
Yeah,
Okay.
so he actually hasn't seen me yet.
Okay.
But he will text all the time, be like, I got a funny joke for you.
Oh, so he gives
Are
you
they
material.
funny?
No.
No?
That's
like-
kind of funny.
Yeah, I'm like, are you being like the obnoxious big brother, you know, like trying to get me like booed off the stage or something? Or are you just being like
You should just
corny?
Do
you
a
know?
whole set. You're like, my brother wrote these jokes.
Yeah.
And just do the entire set with me.
And if everybody, like, maybe it'd be like a good prank where he or Pete or someone said, no matter what she says,
Right.
crack up.
Right, right. Then he'll call you like, I told you those jokes are
Yeah.
funny.
He would do something like that. He totally would. No, but he's actually like super supportive. Like the first time I did it, and then I sent him like the video of it, he was like, "Wow, you're actually funny."
Like, you're
Like,
surprised.
thanks. I think I don't know.
Did you guys get along when you were younger? or-
Yeah,
Yeah.
we're like super close. And probably just also because we moved around so much, so it was like, you know, our first friend when we went to a new place for each other. But he's like typical older brother, and that's probably why I got into sports and stuff, just because he was like a brother, and he like would hit me and chick me into stuff. Like he would put towels in the doors and be like, try and climb up it, but he would rig it a certain way so that if once I started climbing, it would fall and like come out of the door. And
Oh, no.
yeah, like a dummy, I would fall for it all the time, like all of his little antics and stuff. And
Like-
then,
Wow.
Like
Huh.
Lucy with the football. or
exactly,
something. Yeah.
you know, but it was always just like, but I love you.
I
Like,
just
don't
like
tell
to see you
mom.
fall off
Yeah,
doors.
I'm sorry. Don't tell mom. Don't tell mom. Don't tell mom and dad. Like, you can come play with my G.I. Joe toys. Be like, okay.
The statute of limitations is up on that. If your
Exactly.
mom and dad are listening,
Yeah.
and get that now.
Right?
That's how she got all those
Yeah.
pieces. Yeah. And why our doors were all
Yeah,
broken at the top,
exactly.
and our towels were
Yeah.
missing.
And I'm already clumsy, so he didn't really have to do much. But yeah, I was like his source of entertainment. But for whatever reason.
Now I'm thinking of a routine about with a clumsy power lifter. That doesn't
Yeah.
seem like a good
No,
combination.
it's not like at all. That's something I've tried to work on is like different stuff for like balance. Because even when I first started, like when I was doing squats, like Rachel would come over and she was like, "You're doing too many little steps and too much feet stuff going on here." Like, you know, like you gotta have like when you go rack, like step, 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 and that's it. Like you're prancing around. And I totally was, you know, like, oh yeah, you're right. So yeah, I do try and focus on it.
Less feet. That's a
Yeah, right. And then
So for the listeners out there who may be interested and want to get into powerlifting, what advice would you give? Would you say go to your local gym, find if there's classes, or are there other ways out there to find out about this?
A little bit of both. I mean, you definitely probably you should find a like powerlifting, like either coach or just a gym that does powerlifting, because it's a little different than, you know, it's almost like Olympic lifting, where you know, you're not just gonna go into, you know, like the YMCA or something. Nothing that there's wrong with that, because I actually took karate at the YMCA as a kid. I was horrible at that too. But it's definitely something a little more specific. So you either
So your local gym might not offer that.
Might not offer it. But you can look up different meets, and there's like tons of little like communities or workshops or like meetups, I guess. I'm trying to think of what you would call it, but they have different little events where it's not necessarily like a competition. Like there's this one called Pull for Pride that my brother actually did in Minnesota, where it's just deadlifts. So something like that, you would probably meet powerlifters, and then you could learn more. You know, they could probably tell you where to go, like in that area.
Okay, it's like little meetups, like your little, maybe
Yeah,
on Craigslist,
sort of.
go on Craigslist.
Yeah, right.
Go have a few beers,
Right.
lift some weights. Go.
Yeah.
So another question I have for Tiffany: are you a round-away girl?
Oh, well, I guess it depends. Oh, finish that sentence?
Yeah.
I don't know what that is. What is round away, did you say?
Yeah. I mean, I am, but I'm like not like, you know, from like Brooklyn or anything, right? But I'm pretty chill and cool and yeah.
Oh, it's special. Well, let's find out what LL Cool J has to say about that. It was LL Cool J with Around the Way Girl. And you're listening to The Thought Ball. We're back here with Tiffany, who could maybe or maybe not be a Around the Way Girl. Depending on how you define what Around the Way Girl is. I kind of view it as, on one end of the spectrum is hood rat, the other side of the spectrum is bougie, and Around the Way Girl kind of like falls like somewhere in between there.
Yeah. Like everyone likes her, right?
Yeah, everyone's like cool. Could be like, you know, someone that you might describe as like one of the guys, maybe, who, you know, just down for like, you know, whatever.
Yeah.
Speaking of that, I'm wondering about since you do both stand up and improv and powerlifting, are those, do you feel like a gender imbalance in there, or treated differently because of not being white male or anything in any of those things?
I think stand up is probably where that comes into play the most. For sure, for powerlifting, like specifically, it's not so much because, you know, you're doing it and you want to be strong. But I would say, like, on the bigger scheme of things, there's definitely the representation of Black women doing it is like pretty small. I think, you know, I want to say in that first meet I did, there's probably only like 3 Black women, but it didn't feel like you weren't wanted or weren't accepted. It's just the way that it is, you know? For improv, it's pretty, I mean, I think in our area, it's it's not a good representation of our area, but I don't think that I feel any tension because of it. For whatever reason, I just think not a lot of people of color do improv, but the community itself is like super welcoming. Like even one time I did a little one of those like festival, something like that. And we did like a flash to our cutback.
Oh yeah,
type of
me and you were in it.
Yeah,
it was
that's
like had to
right.
do with
yeah.
with,
Oh yeah, that was me and you.
with slavery and picking cotton. I do
and
remember.
somebody was like, Pete and I were out there, and they're like, cut to like 1950, and at the point, or 1850 or something. But during the scene, before they did like cut back, we were like gardening or something. So when they were like cut back to 1850, I was like, oh, we're slaves picking cotton. You know, like, and it was just sort of like, you know, I mean, it actually, I think
It was funny. Yeah.
So, you know, but I think for sure in stand up, and that's sort of why I think we started with my group that we do, like the Say What, with his 3 other performers and me. We just kind of felt like, you know, with comedy and stand up, it's definitely like male dominated and definitely more white. But I mean, there are black too, but for sure, as a woman doing comedy, like just stand up, it's definitely a lot harder to kind of, you know, find your space and make the space. And then we were like, let's just make our own space.
So where can people find this group? Is it on Instagram, you said?
Yeah, we have a page on Instagram, Ladies of Say What.
Ladies of Say What?
Yeah.
Okay.
And we're hoping to have another show sometime in May. But we all do different, you know, our solo stuff too. So like last night, Gina and Chana did a poetry thing at Busboys and Poets in Hyattsville. Gina and I are actually going to be doing a fundraiser for the Lions Club in Ridge, Maryland. I haven't been there yet, but
Ridge, Maryland.
Yeah.
I've never
Ridge,
heard of it,
Maryland.
yeah.
I think it's Ridge, Maryland.
Uh-huh.
Yeah, April 14th.
Okay.
So yeah, we all do different little stuff here and there. Mills Lane, kind of, she did something in Richmond like last month, I think, or something. So we do our own solo stuff and then try and make time, you know, 'cause it's hard. I mean, you know, 4 different people with like schedules. I mean, 2 of them have kids, 2 of us don't, but
Right.
one is has like a job. I shouldn't say. It's not like she's a CIA agent, but she has a job that limits her availability, and then I travel a lot too. So trying to find dates that we can all perform together is sort of the hardest part.
Yeah. But it sounds like it's like a co-op, like you guys can support each
Yeah,
other.
we
too,
don't
and
totally
help.
do.
Mhm.
Yeah, definitely.
Yeah.
Yeah, and our little texting group text is completely hilarious. It's like, yeah, it's definitely not for daytime radio sometimes.
that a little side the point. My family, we recently started doing some group text, and I have occasionally had where, you know, when you text, it doesn't immediately go back to just like blank texting to nobody. You send like I've sent
Right.
a text to the wrong person.
Oh, we have done that. I sent
Okay.
them some stuff that I was like, thank God I sent it to you guys and like not my mom or dad.
Right.
Yeah, there's definitely been some accidents.
Yeah. Yeah, so it's easy to do and can be hilarious, could be be worse.
Yeah.
But
So we have one more song before we have to say goodbye to Tiffany. But thanks for coming by.
It's so fun. I
thank
love
you.
it.
Look up Ladies of Say What on
Yeah.
Instagram.
Continue
Or even
listening.
me, Tiffy Poo.
Continue listening.
76.
Tiffany Poo on Instagram.
Tiffy Poo.
Tiffy Poo.
76.
And there's a lot of you with lifting weights.
Yeah,
and all types of
lifting
stuff.
and yeah.
So continue listening to WOWDLP.
Yay.
We have Roadside Attractions coming up. Steve will be subbing in for Brian, and you will hear a variety of vintage rock and roll, country, blues, and folk from Off the Beaten Path. And from 6 to 8 p.m., we have Roots and Wings Radio with Becky, Reed, and Chris.
Wings.
So continue listening, and we'll...
I might stick around. Just camp out here all day. I don't know.
So we're going to end with MGMT and Electric Feel.